Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. If we haven't met before, I'm Justin with ExcelSmith. If you have been here before, we're excited to have you back. In this video, we take a look at what 5 celebrities from the 90s look like now. Number 3 will amaze you. Let's get... Sorry, this is very unprofessional. Hello? Really? Are you sure? Alright, well, that does sound better. Okay, I'm being told that we are not a celebrity viewing channel, we're a channel dedicated to building better Excel users. With that, here are 5 annoying pivot table behaviors and how to fix them. Let's get started. Number 3 is still pretty amazing. For this video, we'll be using this incredibly professional dataset.
The spreadsheets.
Here are the 5 behaviors we'll be covering. I've included timestamps in the description if you'd like to jump to a specific topic. We're starting with a simple pivot table that shows the count of characters based on last name. Let's filter out Nahasapima-Petalon. Notice the width of column A changed when the name was removed. We can see that again by unfiltering this value. There are times when I don't want the column width to adjust. For example, if the pivot table is part of a larger dashboard. To lock the column width so it doesn't update as you filter values, first right-click anywhere in the pivot table. Then select Pivot Table Options. Head over to the Layout tab and uncheck Auto Fit Column Widths on Update. With that unchecked, we can press OK. Now when we filter out Nahasapima-Petalon, the column width doesn't change. If your pivot table column widths aren't changing when you filter values and you would like for them to, just make sure this option is checked. Which option to use depends on what makes the most sense for your particular use case. Pivot tables have great memories. In other words, the filtering options remember values even after they're removed from the underlying data. This can be quite annoying if you have a pivot table that you constantly update with new data, as the old values will persist in the filters. Let me show you what I mean. Since Apu has been removed from the show, let's remove him from our dataset. Head over to our data and delete row 21. Head back to the pivot table and select Refresh from the Pivot Table Analyze option in the ribbon. If you don't see the Pivot Table Analyze option, make sure you've selected at least one cell within your pivot table. Select the filter next to row labels and notice that Nahasapima-Petalon is still an option. If I uncheck it, nothing happens, but to me, it's annoying that the option exists when the data doesn't. To fix this, we'll again right-click on the pivot table and then select Pivot Table Options. This time, select the Data tab. From this section, uncheck Retain Items Deleted from the data source, and then press OK. Selecting the filter again, we see the name is still present. For the update to take effect, we need to refresh our pivot table. With that done, we can select the filter and see that Nahasapima-Petalon is no longer an option. Using this option ensures that the values available for filtering matches the available values in your dataset. The first 2 items were really just pet peeves. However, I've seen this next one have a material impact on people's analysis. Let's say we have new data to add to our original dataset. Copy the first set of new data, head back to our main dataset, and paste the new values below our original data. Head back to our pivot table, select Pivot Table Analyze from the ribbon, and then click the Refresh button. That's strange, nothing happened. Let's select Change Data Source to see what's going on. Our pivot table's data source didn't update to include the new data. I've seen this get people in trouble when they have reports they update periodically with large amounts of data. So, how do we fix this? We could, of course, update the range in the pivot table data source. However, there's a better way that allows the pivot table's data source to update automatically based on the dataset's range. In other words, we can set it and forget it. First, let's press Cancel to close the Change Data Source window. The trick is to turn our dataset into a table. Let's head back to our data. The easiest way to convert a dataset to a table is to select any single cell within the data and press Ctrl-T on a PC or Command and T on a Mac. Excel automatically selects the range corresponding to our data. It also correctly assumes that our data has headers. Since everything looks good, we can press OK. Just like that, we have a table. Notice the name of our table in the top left corner. In our case, it's Table 1. Let's update this to The Simpsons and press Enter. We'll head back to our pivot table to make the update. Again, select Pivot Table Analyze followed by Change Data Source. Replace the range in the location box with our table name, which is The Simpsons, and then press OK. Notice the pivot table automatically updated to include the newly added data. Let's see this again using another block of new data. After copying it, head back to our main dataset and paste the new values at the end of our existing dataset. The table automatically expands to include the new data. Go back to the pivot table, select Pivot Table Analyze, and press Refresh. Like magic, the pivot table updates with all of the new data. By using tables to hold the source data, you ensure you never have to face the embarrassing conversation about missing pivot table data. You're welcome! If you're finding this video helpful, don't forget to press those like and subscribe buttons. It helps the channel and is greatly appreciated. Our next odd behavior has to do with Excel assuming it knows better than us when we want to see our data summarized by day. To see what I mean, let's remove last name from the rows section and replace it with original air date. My goal was to see how many characters shared the same original air date. Instead, Excel has taken the date value and converted it to year, with the option to expand to see quarter and month. This could be helpful, but it's not what I asked for. To change the month, year, and quarter back to the specific date, you guessed it, we first need to right-click on the first column of the pivot table. From the pop-up, select Ungroup. That's better. We now have data summarized by individual date. If your use case requires rolling up individual dates to a higher category, simply right-click and select Group. To get the original grouping, select Months and then, while holding Shift, select Years. We're now back to the original assumed grouping. Our last scenario occurs when we select multiple values within a filter. To see this, let's replace the date values in the rows section with last name. This time, let's add voice actor as a filter. Say you want to see how many characters are voiced by Hank Azaria. Easy enough. Select the drop-down for voice actor, click Select All to uncheck everyone, and then select Hank Azaria. With a single value selected, it's crystal clear to see how we are filtering our data. The challenge occurs when we select more than one name. Let's add Dan Castellaneta to the mix. Now we have a problem. I can't easily see how I'm filtering my pivot table. To see the filter values, I have to select the filter dropdown. Fortunately, there is a better way. First, let's remove voice actor from the filters section. From the Pivot Table Analyze tab, select Insert Slicers. From the Insert Slicers dialog box, select Voice Actor and press OK. Let's resize our splicer to see all of the options, and then position it towards the top of our pivot table. The splicer kept the filters we applied in the previous filters box. Let's say we also want to include characters voiced by Nancy Cartwright. No problem. While holding either Control on a PC or Command on a Mac, select her name. Our pivot table filtering has been updated to also include the characters she voices. A main benefit of slicers is that they allow us to see all of the filtered values at a glance. This is insanely useful when we need multiple filter categories. Filtering is not just something we do in pivot tables. It also plays a huge role in analyzing raw data. For an introduction to the relatively new and amazing filter function, check out this video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.